I want to thank everyone for joining us for Staying Healthy at Home with Janine FerroLandaverde, personal trainer at the Boston Athletic Club. My name is Jamie Simchek. I'm one of the founders of Harkness Co-work, and we're also joined by Tim Manella, our community manager. Just a quick disclaimer, we strongly recommend that you consult with your physician before beginning any exercise program. If you feel that you may not be able to participate in any exercises covered in this event, we kindly suggest that you just listen in. By participating in this event, you acknowledge that Harkness Co-work, Janine FerroLandaverde, and other participants do not accept any liability. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce Harkness Co-work and Harkness Remote. Harkness Co-work is a collaborative co-working experience located at Capitol Commons in downtown Concord, New Hampshire, with a very local connection. Inspired by an incubator study commissioned by the City of Concord and the Greater Concord Chamber of Commerce, Harkness Co-work gets its name from the philanthropist Edward Harkness, who's a graduate of St. Paul's School, class of 1893. His most transformational gift resulted in challenging Phillips Exeter Academy to revolutionize its educational experience. The heart of this revolutionary experience was based on the creation of a collaborative learning table in his name, which encouraged those around the table to learn from each other and grow together. We have taken this philosophy to heart and embedded this in the co-working experience, whether it be as literal as our table and seats logo and our meeting room tables, or in more subtle ways through our programming. And we're excited to introduce our new virtual speaker series, Harkness Remote. We see this series taking place weekly on Mondays at noon via Zoom. We've got a solid lineup of speakers engaged to present on relevant topics and to engage the audience and answer questions in doing so. We hope this series can be a resource to entrepreneurs and those entrepreneurially inclined by focusing on positivity and examining how we can stay healthy and productive during this time of such disruption and uncertainty. Now, we're very excited to have Janine FerroLandaverde with us today. Janine is a certified strength and conditioning coach through the NSCA and a certified athletic trainer. She has both a bachelor's and master's of science in athletic training. Originally from Connecticut, she went to Boston University and returned to Boston after finishing graduate school in Arizona. She has spent her career thus far in collegiate athletics across all three division levels. She has worked with athletes in a variety of sports, from basketball and soccer to track, wrestling, and club sports, including rugby. A New Englander native, Janine figure skated for years and loved playing softball as well. As a personal trainer, Janine has helped clients from 15 to 85 years old. While addressing her clients' goals, she focuses on mobility, injury prevention, functionality, and building core strength. Her background is in athletic training, allows for the addition of rehabilitative-based exercises and manual techniques when appropriate. Janine likes to read up on the latest research and is a life learner in the profession. Aside from challenging herself with sprint triathlons and teaching group exercise classes, Janine enjoys activities outdoors, yoga, exploring Boston, trying a new recipe at home. Without further ado, I'm excited to turn this over to Janine.
Thank you, Jamie, and thank you, Tim, as well, to the Harkness Co-work for inviting me to speak. I'm just going to pull up my screen here for you. Let's see. So I appreciate your attendance and interest in listening to me speak regarding how to stay healthy while at home. Oops. Sorry for my technical difficulties here. There's that play button. All right. So, not only is this topic relevant for those of you that already work out of your homes, but I think in these trying times, this topic is especially important. I'm really happy to shed some light on the subject, and it also gives me some great purpose in my day, seeing as my normal work situation is a little bit different now. So as I kind of dive into the topic of what is wellness, there's a few more points that I want to make sure I mention through our presentation. Wellness is an all-encompassing term that surpasses physical health just on its own. Of course, that'll be my main point today, but especially now we're experiencing the need to address these other aspects, mental health, of course, but emotional health and what that means to us in these times, social health, which I think is an even bigger issue now that many of us are probably feeling a bit isolated, and sort of navigating how to maintain our social relationships. I think this is a really great picture of all of these people, you know, holding hands. They look like they're jumping for joy. And, you know, who knew we would sort of miss having that sensation and being close to people and being able to hug and touch people, you know, the way that we do now in these circumstances. Emotional health, again, I think being home more than ever now, what your environment is really important. Your spiritual health and nutrition will be my other sort of main point of focus as I get into today's discussion. So physical health and how to address that. Fitness goals are always important, and how to address your fitness goals and how to stick with them can be a bit of a challenge. I think SMART goals are a great way to go. SMART goals are really helpful for any goals, but particularly with fitness, it really makes sure that you're on the right track to achieving them. So if you're not familiar with what a SMART goal is, the S stands for specific, M, measurable, A, attainable, R, realistic, and T for time-oriented. So especially now, I think SMART goals are really helpful. Even in my own routine, I'm having a hard time maintaining, you know, what my fitness goals are and how to address them prior to, you know, having to essentially quarantine. My fitness goals included signing up for a triathlon and preparing for that. And it's really hard to train appropriately for that at this time. So even something simple, for example, saying, I'm going to run up and down my street 3 times a week for 20 minutes until, you know, things get back to normal, until I'm able to go back to work, my normal work routine. That is an example of a SMART goal. That could even get more specific in mentioning what days of the week you plan on doing your running and how much rest time you plan on giving yourself between sets of running up and down the street. Journaling is another great way to assess how you're staying on top of your fitness goals. Of course, there's a lot of apps now that help with fitness tracking. With regard to fitness apps, and I'm finding that app situation a little overwhelming these days because there were already a lot, but now many of them are offering free trials or sort of extended access to their information, which is great. But again, I think this is where using SMART goals comes into play because it's easy to try one and move on to the next and do a bunch of different things and not stay on track with what you really want to address. But these are some of the ones that I've looked into, some I've used, and others, say like Peloton, I know are, you know, very popular in offering those extended trial periods. Also, for my own little plug, the Boston Athletic Club, where I work, has a Facebook and Instagram page, and we're posting a lot of free content, workouts, things like that on there. So you can see me there as well. If you do not have equipment at home, it's no problem. You can get creative. This is a picture of me doing a plank. I have a cast iron frying pan on my back, and my husband kindly helped place various pantry items in the pan to make it a little heavier. So there's lots of different ways you can do body weight workouts and use different objects in your home. If you don't have a weight, but you have a really heavy book, cast iron pan, whatever it may be, you can utilize those items. When you exercise, you know, you want to think about your movements, including your whole body. It's really hard, I think, to work on isolating muscles, especially when you're working out at home and you may not have the appropriate equipment to do that. So when we talk about a total body exercise, you want to think about your movements in the way that your body moves. So your arms push, your arms pull, your legs push and pull, vertically and horizontally as well, depending on the position you're in. Your body flexes and extends at the torso, it laterally bends, and it rotates. So these are all motions that you want to make sure you address to have a well-rounded workout. The other thing to keep in mind is format. And so this can be a really helpful way when you're looking for more of a challenge. Again, say you don't have a lot of equipment at home. Your workout can just be body weight, and you can do a HIIT workout or a Tabata workout. HIIT stands for high intensity interval training. Tabata is another specific format of that. So for example, doing 30 seconds of a particular exercise, say squat jumps, 30 seconds on, 15 seconds off, or maybe it's a 1-to-1 format, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, and either doing a repeat of that or moving on to a different exercise. Tabata takes that single exercise, and its specific format is 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off, and repeating that 8 times. Compounding supersets, again, just a way to make your workouts a little more difficult. You're looking at doing 2 exercises repeated back to back, you know, for however many sets, could be 3, could be 4 or 5. But using similar muscle groups in both exercises back to back, so you're really fatiguing those muscles through the sets. And volume, volume referring to how many repetitions you're doing. So if you're somebody that has, you know, maybe some really old physical therapy equipment at home, like maybe all you have is one of those very long stretchy TheraBands, or maybe you only have like 1 2-pound dumbbell, doing a lot of repetitions is the way to get at addressing muscle strength and feeling like you're fatiguing that muscle a little bit. So the benefits of exercise. I really liked this picture, this old school 80s aerobics photo where all these women seem to have the same haircut. But I included the link to the CDC's website here with recommended exercise guidelines that's based on gender and age. But, you know, and it sort of elaborates a bit more specifically, and also, you know, with regards to what the benefits of exercise are. I think we all know that there are many benefits. Aerobic exercise, of course, being types of exercise that address your cardiovascular system, and anaerobic referring a little bit more to resistance, strength training exercises. But, you know, as someone that is now having to work from home, whereas I didn't really do much of that before, I'm even finding maintaining physical health is difficult. So, you know, making sure that you fit some form of exercise into your day for even 20 minutes can be a big help. Exercise will help improve bone health, and that also helps reduce fall risk. And you know, for older adults, that's particularly important. But you know, we're all getting older every day, so reducing your risk of falls, or say tripping on the curb, or in, you know, wintertime, being able to handle yourself when you're walking over black ice, maybe catching yourself before a fall happens. That's really important to help reduce the risk of other injury. Exercise also helps ward off cardiovascular disease, which is something I'll kind of mention again later on. Diabetes, type 2 diabetes specifically. Exercise helps improve cognition. I don't think there's a time when I've, gone into a workout where maybe I didn't really feel like doing it, but I did it anyway. I always came out feeling better on the other side of that. Exercise helps decrease your anxiety. It improves your mood. I think we all feel that after we've finished a workout. Exercise also helps improve your sleep. Speaking as somebody that teaches exercise classes multiple days a week, I can tell you for sure, I sleep like a rock. And it's now that I'm not involved in doing those classes that I'm finding my sleep gets a little disturbed and I'm waking up a little more than I used to. And of course, weight management is a big benefit of exercise in your schedule. So again, on the point of physical health and working from home, your posture and ergonomics is really important. I've been relating to this little Dilbert comic as of late. I can tell you, I do not have an at-home desk setup. I do not have a standing adjustable desk. I'm sitting at a kitchen table built here in New England that is probably solid oak or something, and I have no cushions on my chair, and various parts of my body go numb while I'm sitting here. So if you are somebody that works from home, a appropriate ergonomic setup will be really beneficial for you. The areas of your body that get most affected when you're in seated for long periods of time include your ankles, hips, back, neck, elbows, and wrists. So all of these joints. It's recommended that a 1-to-1 or a 3-to-1 ratio of standing sitting time can be most beneficial. So for example, sitting for 30 minutes means you should be standing for the next 30 minutes. Or 3-to-1, and in this case, I'm going to flip-flop, standing for 45 minutes against sitting for 15. So really more standing time will be more beneficial for you. So my recommendation, stretch as much as you can, stretch everything that you know how to stretch everywhere, particularly at the joints that I've mentioned above. You want to address all ranges of motion, just like you would with your exercise. You want to address stretching those muscles in the same manner, all ranges of motion. Again, there's a lot of yoga apps that are available and offering free or sort of those longer availability trials or longer time for use for free. So I use the Down Dog app. I know the Core Power app is also free for the time being. And it may be beneficial for you if you're able to stream those to your television so that you can kind of watch the movements on a bigger screen. This slide, I think, is a great slide. There's a lot of information on it. So I'm not going to read everything in fine detail here. But what it really shows you is how your body is affected when you're sitting too much. So the consequences of too much seated time really end up being due to how your circulation is affected for a lot of different reasons. But when you're seated for a long time, your circulation isn't as good. It slows. And so there's consequences on your brain health and how it functions, your heart health, musculoskeletal health. Multiple joints, as you can see in this picture, are in flexed positions that place muscles in contracted or shortened positions. And this ends up leading to weaker anterior musculature and overstressed posterior muscles. So when you're seated like this individual is, and you end up hunching forward, your shoulders are rounding, your neck is coming forward, everything's getting kind of crunched up in front, and everything in back is just getting overstressed. And you can tell by this image, rounded back. So what can you do to address all of this? Well, there's definitely a science to ergonomics at your desk and addressing your posture. So these are some of the main bullet points that I've picked out regarding your workstation, particularly when you're seated. If you have an adjustable desk, that's great. If you're able to work up and down out of your seat. You do want to be mindful, though, at your workstation if there are objects you have to frequently reach for, if you're using multiple monitors in particular and you're swiveling, and also if you're somebody that needs to spend a lot of time on the phone using, portable headsets. Thankfully, we have really cool earbuds now, and you don't necessarily need that big, goofy headset anymore. But that can be really helpful so that you're not cranking your neck and holding that phone in position. So to kind of touch upon these, in seated, it's recommended that the 90-degree position that your thighs are in, sort of up against your trunk, really isn't ideal. So it's recommended that that angle is more oblique, and that you have up to 135-degree body to thigh position. What this does is this allows for more of a hip flexor stretch in front and more opening up through the hip. Your chair height should be adjusted so that your forearms are at the desk height with elbows at a 90 to 100-degree angle. This allows the shoulders to come into a relaxed position. Your chair should also have some sort of lumbar support as well for your low back. Now, if when you raise your chair, your feet lift up off of the floor, it's recommended that you get an angled footrest to help support your feet. And what this does is this puts your ankle at a really nice angle so that you have more of a stretch happening at your calf and your Achilles. Your wrist should be in a neutral position to the keyboard. I think what tends to happen is a lot of people have that sort of wrist pad, that little bump to their keyboard for support, but that really just elevates your wrist and puts you in more extension, which can be problematic over time especially. So again, that chair height should be adjusted to allow your wrist to be in a neutral position. And depending on your setup, you might even be able to change your keyboard slope to a negative angle. I know some desks have that pull out shelf for the keyboard. You might be able to angle that in a negative position so that your wrists are not in extension while you work. Your monitor should be front and center at eye level, about arm's length apart. And again, I already mentioned the use of those portable headsets being helpful. So this next slide just kind of shows an image of all of those points that I just touched upon. She looks much happier than that other guy, and I love the little footrest as well. And so I've included some really basic stretches that I think could be helpful with regard to posture. This first slide, these are of course pictures of me. This first slide is cat-cow stretch. This is a really common yoga stretch. The first image here is of me in cow pose, where your back is sort of sloped into extension. See, I've got my shoulders right over my wrists. My hands are flat and engaged into the mat, so I'm getting a little bit of a wrist stretch. And I'm keeping my shoulders down from my ears, bringing my chin up, and that's allowing a nice neck or trap stretch. The second image, that's the cat position. And so I'm rounding my back, keeping my core engaged. Again, shoulders, elbows, wrists are all stacked, pushing through my hands to allow separation of my shoulder blades and getting a nice stretch there. and chin comes to chest. So now I'm getting a stretch through my neck extensors. Now this slide has a few different wrist and shoulder stretches on it. So kind of moving across the slide from left to right here. The first stretch, really common, it's a door frame stretch. Just got my elbow up at about 90 degrees on the door frame there. I've stepped forward and I'm kind of pushing through gently the front of my shoulder there. So that's giving me a stretch through the head of my bicep, your pectoralis, which is, you know, one of your main chest muscles here as well. Moving through the middle of the slide, these images show a wrist flexor stretch, and there's also a bit of bicep and pec involvement here. So depending on what your wrist mobility is like, you know, the first image there, I've got my hand up on the wall. That's a little gentler than turning your fingertips down. That can be really intense if you have tight wrists or forearms. And before you do any of these, you know, if you're having any issues at any joints or experiencing inflammation or pain or anything, you really should make sure that you speak to your doctor before going ahead and doing these movements. When you're in this position with your hand up on the wall, very similar to the door frame stretch, you just step forward slightly and you can tell I'm kind of rotating away from the wall, and that's just deepening the stretch in through the bicep muscle and the chest musculature as well. And then the last image, that's stretching the wrist extensors, so the muscles on the top of your forearm. And so I've just done that in standing, flexing the wrist and gently pulling the palm, pulling the fingertips back towards you. You want to make sure with all of these that you're keeping your shoulders relaxed from your ears, and you never want to be pushing yourself into a painful position. It's just a gentle stretch that you're looking to achieve. Now on this slide, the first image on the left there, this is of a cervical or upper trap stretch. And so this one actually is pretty effective considering you're not leveraging yourself against anything. Just got my hand gently pulling my ear to the opposite shoulder, and I'm reaching away with the other arm. And you can tell from the position that's giving me a really nice stretch through my neck and my shoulder. The next image, the hip flexor latissimus dorsi stretch, that's a big one. So I'm in a half kneeling position here. I'm engaging my hips forward, trying to keep my core engaged. So thinking about pulling belly button to spine, and I'm reaching up and across, gently pulling with the opposite arm. So that's giving me a big stretch all through the right side of my body in that image. A glute hip rotator stretch that's great to do is the figure 4. You can see I'm seated on the floor. I've just got one ankle over the other knee. I'm keeping good posture with my shoulders down, and I'm using my hands on the floor there to help push my chest forward. So where I'm feeling the stretch in that picture is through that left hip and glute. And then the last one here, the glute hamstring calf stretch, again, kind of hits a bunch of different points. All I've done in this image is I've stepped forward with one heel, I've tipped from the waist, driving my hips back, and I'm reaching to the toes there to pull up. That's giving me a deeper calf stretch and hamstring stretch. Now, if you're somebody with any low back issues, particularly disc problems, or if you have sciatica, this could be a really intense stretch. So be mindful of how much you're pushing into it, and certainly stay away from a stretch like this if you're somebody with disc issues and flexion is a problem for you. So kind of moving on to my next main topic here of mental emotional wellness. You know, I liked this meme I popped in to the slide. I think this is really meant for those who get a little disgruntled on Valentine's Day, but it really felt relevant for the times we're in right now. You know, there's a lot of ways that you can sort of address your mental and emotional wellness. These are just some general tips. You know, keeping a routine is really important. I've always been sort of a scheduler and somebody that likes to plan, and I like to use a planner. But particularly now, whether you're normally working from home or not, keeping a routine is important. It can just bring some structure into your day. So along with that, planning out your day, maybe you literally need to sit down and say, okay, from 9 to 11 a.m. I'm doing this. From 11 to 1, I'm having my lunch and taking a break to stretch or go for a walk, whatever. It depends on you and how organized you like to be, but getting down to specifics like that might be helpful for you. And so to that point, make sure you take breaks. Schedule those breaks in. I've been trying to do that more since now I'm in this work from home situation that I wasn't in before. So I'm sort of navigating that as well. But if you are not working in those breaks for yourself, it can be very easy to have your whole day taken advantage of, especially again now in this sort of new work from home situation for everybody. I've had a lot of clients tell me that they're feeling overwhelmed, their workday doesn't really end, people are sending them emails at 9 at night or later or Sunday morning where they're expecting responses. So you need to perhaps work in some boundaries. If you're somebody that already worked from home before, this might not be a challenge for you. You might already be really good at this. Keep your workspace separate. If your workspace becomes your whole house, it can be really hard to separate yourself from it. So try to designate an area where your work stays, and that way you can do your work where it needs to be done and feel more relaxed when you go into another area of your home. Of course, again, in the times we're dealing with, keeping in touch with family and friends is important for that mental, emotional, social wellness aspect, using FaceTime, Zoom, Skype, whatever social media works for you. Sleep is super important. It's always been important. I think with our American work culture, we tend to ignore the importance of sleep. Sleep is for the weak. Getting enough sleep is important. That's how you're a functional human being the next day. That's how you learn and retain information. That's how you're at your best. Adult humans need 8 hours of sleep. It might be a little bit less for you. You might be somebody that needs 8.5 or 9, but I think I'm like a 7.5-er, but that's also what I'm used to with my particular schedule. Taking naps is okay. That 2 o'clock feeling is very real. So that may be the way that you get a little bit more sleep. 20-minute power nap can be really helpful. Eating a healthy, well-rounded diet, that's something that I'll get into a little bit more coming up. Do things for you. Return to your hobbies. It's a great time to do that. Explore your interests, but don't put too much pressure on yourself. Don't make yourself, learn how to knit and make an Afghan before the coronavirus is over. Set realistic expectations for yourself and have fun with that downtime. Try to limit your screen time, especially with the news. That can be pretty depressing sometimes. I don't think the news is usually full of positive things regardless. And remember these other sort of mediums: podcasts, books, read books. You can journal, meditate. There's some different apps I've mentioned here for meditation that are really helpful. And laughter is important. I've never felt better than when I've had a good belly laugh that has made me cry. There is evidence on the benefits of laughter. So as I get into my last point here regarding nutrition, I had a quote from a text from my aunt that I wanted to share. This is from over the weekend. She said, "Happy Easter, family. Missing all. Stay safely quarantined. I'm really sick of this. I feel like a bank robber every time I don a mask and go to the grocery store. Put them up. Give me all your cookies, cakes, and ice cream, and anything else loaded with sugar. I've not been 6 feet from my refrigerator. Sweet baby Jesus." Yes, that's what she sent me. Nutrition is super tough right now while being quarantined at home. I think we all went and did the panic grocery shopping and came home with a lot of stuff that maybe we don't normally buy, particularly carbohydrate based, frozen foods, things like that. When you're working from home, or really anytime in life, these are some good tips. Recipe planning is really helpful. Pick out, maybe 3 or 4 recipes that are doable for you during your week, depending on what day it is you plan on cooking. That should yield some leftovers, so there's lunch for the next day, or maybe the next day's dinner, so you don't have to cook again. Try to shop for your recipes. I know that that's really hard right now, and it's easy to get sort of caught up in going to the grocery store and just getting, like I said, frozen food. But you'll definitely do better, and you'll probably save a little more money if you write out your grocery list according to your recipes. Buy more fresh produce. This is a main bullet point for always. But in my experience as of late, going to the grocery store, produce is what I'm seeing is available. I don't know that that's everybody's experience, but that's my experience at the stores that I've been going to. Produce has vitamins. Vitamins help improve your immune system. We all want good immune systems right now. So this is your time to buy some fresh fruit and veggies, eat them up through the week before you have to go back to the grocery store. It's a great time to try new things. Maybe you never liked beets before. Maybe it's time to see if you like them now. That was something that when I was a kid, I really didn't like. It's definitely like an acquired taste. As an adult, it's something I enjoy more now, and I'd like to learn how to cook with that particular vegetable a little bit more. So it's a good time to try new things, try new recipes. My other big tip regarding nutrition is try to eat at your kitchen or dining room table. When you sit in front of the television and eat, your brain sort of gets programmed that anytime you sit in front of the television, it's time to eat. And that's not a good situation to be in. So try to make eating its own separate moment. It's always a nice time to try to connect with your roommate or your partner and actually have a meaningful conversation, and not one that's complicated by various electronics. Portion control, and that goes along with eating slowly and mindfully. When you chew your food more and you eat slower, you tend to not eat as much. So you want to allow your body, your mind, time to recognize that, oh, the stomach's getting full. I don't need to go back for seconds. Okay. Now on this next slide here, I've included the link for the government's Choose My Plate page. That includes definitely some more specific direction with regard to diet and nutritional health. I've included the Mayo Clinic's link here because they had some good information about the Mediterranean diet, which I'm partial to being Italian American, but it's definitely the #1 recommended diet. But don't think about it like a diet, like you're restricting yourself from things. It's just a very healthy way of eating. It limits somewhat your dairy intake, but there's more of a limit on red meat in particular. So that's important because it helps reduce your risk of cardiovascular disease. It's a very heart healthy way of eating. Cardiovascular disease is the leading cause of death in the US. So on average, about every 40 seconds, an American has a myocardial infarction or a heart attack. And every 40 seconds, an American has a stroke. Heart disease is responsible for 1 in 3 deaths. That's a huge proportion. So eating a heart healthy diet, living a heart healthy lifestyle is really important. So a Mediterranean diet is more plant-based. You get to enjoy healthy fats like olive oil, for example. Who doesn't like olive oil? Your protein sources also come from things like legumes, which is beans, healthier grains, so not things like white rice and grains that have been overly processed, but heartier grains like quinoa, barley, farro, brown rice, etc. My other big point with nutrition is that you want to check added sugar. It's really sneaky. Added sugar is in a lot of different things. The American Heart Association recommends the following values that I've put here on the slide. Men should be having a daily allowance of less than 9 teaspoons. And for women, it's less than 6. So when you think about it, if you have a coffee in the morning and you have 2 teaspoons of sugar, I mean, and you're a woman, you've only got 4 left for the whole day. It's, you know, a pretty low number. And added sugar is, like I said, it's sneaky and it's a lot of different things, especially processed foods, you know, things that are in your pantry, even dairy. But in particular, it's in beverages. So soda, we know, is a big one. Fruit juices as well. Too much sugar has a profound effect on your body and your brain. Your brain depends on sugar for fuel, but when you have too much, it has a big effect on your brain's connectivity and how it functions. You literally can get addicted to sugar. It's a real thing that we joke about it, but your brain does have a dopamine response to it. So when you have sugar, and then you kind of crave more of it, it's your brain sending a signal that it wants some more. So when you give into that, it becomes this cycle of needing more and more to sort of appease your brain and get the dopamine response your body's looking for. So it's a cycle with some negative effects. And those negative effects can include disrupted memory formation, lethargy. You're looking at potentially having some negative emotional responses. You know, no one feels good after they overeat, you know, and you often end up feeling pretty guilty about it anyway. But too much sugar, of course, also can lead to developing type 2 diabetes, amongst other physiological consequences. So in conclusion, some of the main points I wanted to reiterate here. SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-oriented goals are very helpful in life in general, but for fitness goals in particular. Planning a routine, a daily routine for yourself. Factor in taking breaks, particularly to get up from your desk, go for a walk, stretch, whatever it may be. You may need to address your workspace ergonomics. Again, if you're seated at your desk all day and you are having back pain, neck pain, wrist problems, whatever, it may behoove you to pay somebody and have them come in to measure, take measurements of your space to properly address making a more ergonomic workstation for you. Plan and shop for the meals that you plan. Feed your mind and your soul. There's more to your wellness than the physical aspect. You want to keep stimulating your mind in other ways beyond Netflix, and your social emotional wellness, your spiritual wellness as well. And getting enough sleep, super, super important. That's how you can really maintain your function through the day. And so if there are any questions, I can answer those now. I've included my email if you'd like to reach out specifically. And again, just the Boston Athletic Club's information for Facebook and Instagram. So thank you.
Janine, this is great. We did get one question.
Sure. Am I seeing that here? Oh, yes. Can I read it aloud? Is that okay? Okay, so I see I have a few questions. Thank you, Dawn. So a question from Dawn, do I have any recommendations to combat fatigue and lack of motivation to exercise at home? Great question. I've also been feeling this way as of late. It's definitely hard. I think the biggest thing, like I said, is to schedule in that break time, because even when I felt kind of crummy, you know, and of course living in New England, the weather is not great, particularly today, it's pretty terrible. But when you're seated for a while and you start to get really tight, you know, it can just make you feel like you don't want to move. I think just reminding yourself that after you've done something, you will feel better, and that you want to get to that place where you feel better is motivation. So scheduling in that time, if you know you were on a work call for an hour or so, planning on getting up, maybe you have to change your clothes, get into your workout gear, and do whatever it is that works for you that day. I also think, in the home, I've personally found wearing my headphones to listen to my workout music brings in a little bit more focus for me, versus just playing music through the speaker in general. I get really distracted by things that are sort of out of place and other stuff I feel like I need to be doing. So music can be a big motivator as well. Another question here, do you have any specific recommendations for people living at home, living alone? I don't think specifically whether you're home alone or not. I just think routine and planning can be really helpful. That way you stay sort of organized in a schedule. Whether it's literally using a planner or having reminders go off on your phone, anything that's sort of going to help motivate you. It can be kind of tough, I think, when you don't have someone else, to motivate you. But perhaps that's where some of the social media comes into play. Maybe you and your workout buddy can, do something via Zoom together. The possibilities with social media and the FaceTime Zoom applications are kind of endless, I think. Any other questions or any slides you want me to refer back to?
Well, Janine, I think this has been great. Thanks so much.
Sure. Well, thank you. It was really a nice opportunity to share some knowledge and, you know, connect during this time. Oh, and I see, I'm sorry, there's one other question if I can answer it here.
Go for it.
If I have any other questions regarding exercising while the partner is at home. You know, that's a good question. If you and your partner are not on the same page about, you know, workout time and fitness, or particularly if you're in a smaller space, that can be kind of tough. It's really important to, I think, feel supported by your partner when you're trying to achieve fitness goals. So maybe having a little conversation to say, you know, hey, I want to start working out for a half hour every day. Would you mind relinquishing the living room space to me, you know, at 10 o'clock tomorrow, or, you know, something to that extent, just so you have a little bit of a dialogue about it. If, you know, you're not, if that's not possible, depending on your living situation, then what I've been doing since being home now is looking at my weather app for the week. And when it's nice out, which I realize it's few and far between here in New England right now, but you know, if Tuesday, Thursday, Friday are nice days, then I'm planning on getting outside, whether I'm going for a walk or run or whatever. So maybe that's how you have to schedule in your fitness time if you don't really want to be working out in front of your partner while you're home. Take advantage of the outdoors. It'll also make you feel better to be outside.
Any other questions? Well, perfect. Well, Janine, again, thanks. This has been a great event. On behalf, yeah, no, definitely. And on behalf of Tim and myself, I want to thank you for such a wonderful presentation, and thank everyone for participating today.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your questions and for having me. This was great.
Definitely. And we appreciate you all being a part of the Harkness Cowork community and for joining us for the Harkness Remote series. Keep
All right. Take care. Bye.